She said it while standing at the stove, not facing me, with her back to me, which was its own specific communication. The particular way of delivering a verdict that does not require the speaker to look at the person receiving it, because the speaker has decided the person receiving it is not worth the full direction of her attention. She was stirring something. The steam from the pot was rising in the specific patient way of something that has been warming for a long time and has finally reached the temperature that makes it visible. My name is Theodora. I am 35 years old. My mother-in-law's name is Marvella. She was 66 years old and had the particular quality of a woman who had organized her sense of herself around her son for so long that she experienced my presence in his life as a kind of atmospheric disturbance, a weather event that had arrived without invitation and that she had been trying, across 3 years of my marriage to her son Elias, to redirect. She said, "I have never understood what my son sees in you. You came into this family with nothing. You bring nothing. You are too worthless to deserve a place in his home or at his table. I have said this privately, and today I am saying it where you can hear it." She stirred her pot. The kitchen was warm with the particular warmth of a room that has been cooking for hours, the specific layered smell of the meal she had been making since morning, the steam. The afternoon light through the window above the sink that was doing the particular golden thing that late afternoon light does in kitchens. I stood in the kitchen. My bag was on the chair behind me. I had come to Marvella's house that afternoon because Elias had asked me to deliver documents she had requested for a family matter, property documents, the specific papers associated with the home that Elias and I lived in, which Marvella had asked to review for reasons she had described to Elias as administrative and that I had understood, from the moment he told me, were something else. I reached into my bag. I removed the documents. I set them on her kitchen table. Flat. 1 page at a time. In order. Every page had my name on it. The documents required explanation, not to Marvella, because the documents explained themselves, but to you. Because the weight of what I said on that kitchen table is only understandable if you understand what the documents contained and how they came to contain my name. Elias and I had been married for 3 years. The home we lived in, a 4-bedroom craftsman in a neighborhood that had been my grandmother's neighborhood and then my mother's neighborhood, and that I had spent 35 years watching with the particular attention of someone who understood its value before the market did, had been purchased 4 years before our marriage. Not by Elias. By me. I had purchased it at 28 years old using a combination of savings I had been building since I was 22 and the specific patient financial strategy of a woman who had grown up in a household where my mother had taught me that property was the most durable form of self-determination a Black woman could achieve, and who had made me understand, through the example of her own careful accumulation, what building toward that durability required. I had saved for 6 years. I had purchased the house. I had been living in it for 2 years when I met Elias. We had married 2 years after that. At no point during our courtship, our engagement, or our marriage had I changed the ownership structure of the property. My name was on the deed. My name was on the original purchase documents. My name was on the mortgage documents, which I had paid from my personal account every month for 4 years before the marriage, and which Elias had contributed to from our joint account for the 3 years since. My name was on every page. Not because I had been strategic about it or because I had anticipated this specific kitchen table moment, but because the house was mine and had been mine and the documentation reflected what was accurate. Marvella had asked to see these documents for her administrative family matter. She had received them. Flat on her kitchen table. Every page. My name. She had stopped stirring the pot. I need to tell you about Marvella because the story requires the honesty of seeing her fully, and she deserves to be understood before she is reduced to the woman at the stove who said the word worthless. Marvella Okafor James was 66 years old and had raised 3 children: Elias, his sister Constance, and his younger brother Derek, largely alone after her husband Marcus had died when Elias was 14. She had worked as an office manager for a medical group for 22 years. She had owned the house she lived in, a modest 2-bedroom that she had purchased in her own name in 1998, and that she had maintained with the particular careful dignity of someone for whom the ownership was itself the daily evidence that she had made something of what she had been given. She was not a woman without strength. She was a woman whose strength had been organized across 22 years of single parenthood around the specific project of ensuring her children's survival and success, and who had developed, in the process of that organization, the particular conviction that anyone who entered her children's lives needed to be weighed against the standards she had set. She had weighed me. She had found me wanting. Not accurately from the specific narrow vantage of someone who had looked at what I presented in social situations and had not asked what I had built. The social presentation was modest. The building was not. I was a property acquisitions consultant. I had been one for 9 years. I had been consulting on the purchase, development, and management of residential and commercial properties in the city and in 2 adjacent markets since I was 26 years old. I was good at this work in the specific way of someone who had been preparing for it since she was 12 years old, sitting at her mother's kitchen table learning to read a property tax assessment. Marvella had never asked what I did. Elias had told her the title, Acquisitions Consultant, which had not communicated to her the specific nature of what the title meant, because the specific nature of what the title meant requires the kind of curiosity that Marvella had decided. At some point in our acquaintance, she did not need to apply to me. The documents on her kitchen table were the specific nature of what the title meant. Elias was 38 years old and had the particular quality of a man whose mother was the most significant person in his life before his wife arrived, and who had not fully resolved what it meant that a new most significant person had arrived. He was not a weak man. He was a man in the specific position of someone who loves 2 people whose conflict with each other produces in him the particular exhausted paralysis of someone trying to hold something together that is being pulled in 2 different directions. He had not been in Marvella's kitchen on the afternoon of the documents. He had asked me to deliver them. This was the specific error of a man who understood, somewhere in the part of himself that managed information he did not fully want to examine, that the situation he was asking me to walk into was more charged than he was describing. He had said, "Can you drop the documents off at my mother's? She needs them for the family meeting next week." I had said, "What family meeting?" He had said, "Just some property discussion among the family. Nothing that affects us." I had said, "Elias, is there something I should know about this meeting?" He had said, "No, it's just administrative." The word administrative was doing considerable work in that sentence. I had taken the documents. I had driven to Marvella's house. I had heard what she said. I had laid the documents on the table. I had then called Elias from the driveway. He answered on the first ring. "What family meeting?" I said. He was quiet. "Elias," I said, "I'm in your mother's driveway. Tell me what family meeting." He told me. The family, Marvella, Constance, and Derek, had been having a conversation about whether the home that Elias and I lived in might be available as an asset for a family financial matter. Marvella had apparently communicated to Constance and Derek that the home was Elias's. She had not communicated that the home was mine. She had not known. Now she knew. The family meeting was on a Saturday. Constance had called me on Thursday. She was 40 years old and had the specific quality of Elias's older sister. She had her mother's organizational energy applied to a cooler and more analytical temperament. And she had been watching the situation between me and Marvella with the particular careful attention of someone who understood both parties and who had not yet found the moment to intervene. The documents had apparently created the moment. She called me on Thursday and said, "I want to talk to you before Saturday." We met for coffee. She was direct in the way I had always appreciated about Constance, not warm in the uncomplicated way but honest in the way that is more useful than warmth when what is needed is accuracy. "My mother called me on Tuesday evening," she said. "After you left." "What did she say?" I said. "She said that she had looked at the documents," Constance said, "and that she had not understood." She used those words. I want to be precise. She had not understood that the home was yours. "No," I said. "She also said something else," Constance said. I waited. "She said that she owed you an apology for what she said before you put the documents on the table." Constance looked at her coffee. "She said it took her 2 days to arrive at that, but she arrived there." "She told you that?" I said. "She told me and she told Derek," she said. "She said she had spoken about you in a way that she was not proud of." I sat with this. "The family meeting," I said. "What was going to be discussed?" There was a conversation, Constance said carefully, about whether the family might have access to the home as collateral for Derek's business expansion. My mother had told Derek and me that Elias had been very successful and that the home was substantial and that it might be available. She told you it was Elias's, I said. She implied it, Constance said. It isn't, I said. I know that now, Constance said. The Saturday meeting is going to be different from what anyone was expecting. Yes, I said. Theodora, she said. Yes, I said. I'm sorry for the part my family played in this, she said. Including the part my brother played by not being clear with any of us. The Saturday meeting was at Marvella's house. I arrived with Elias. He had spent the Thursday and Friday in the particular careful conversation of a man who has understood that he has been imprecise in ways that had consequences and who is doing the specific difficult work of acknowledging the imprecision to the person it affected. He had said on Friday evening, I should have told them from the beginning that the house was yours. When my mother started talking about family assets and what Elias had, I should have corrected the picture. I didn't. I let the picture stand because the correction would have required a conversation I was avoiding. What conversation? I said. About how the house being yours makes me feel, he said. Which is something I need to address because my feelings about it don't change what's accurate and I've been letting the feelings make the picture blurry instead of addressing them directly. I looked at my husband. That's honest, I said. Yes, he said. We need to talk about how it makes you feel, I said. That's a real conversation. But it's separate from the family meeting. Yes, he said. And on Saturday I said, I need you to be the one who clarifies the picture. Not me. Yes, he said. In the room, I said. At the table. In front of your mother and your sister and your brother. Yes, he said. He did. We sat at Marvella's kitchen table, the same table, the steam gone now, the pot not on the stove, and Elias said, clearly and without deflection, that the home was mine, that it had been mine when we married, that it remained mine, that any conversation about family assets that included the home as a potential resource had been based on a misunderstanding he was responsible for not correcting. Marvella sat across from me. She looked at the table. Then she looked at me. I spoke to you badly, she said. 2 days earlier she had told Constance she owed an apology. She was paying it now. Not to Constance. To me. We stayed after Derek and Constance left. Elias went to the kitchen to make tea, not because tea was required, but because Elias had always expressed care through small useful acts and because he understood that his mother and I were about to have a conversation that required him to be present without being in the center of it. Marvella and I sat in the sitting room. The afternoon light through her sitting room window was the particular amber of a late Saturday afternoon in autumn, warm and specific, and doing the thing that autumn light does, which is make everything it touches look considered. I want to explain something, she said. All right, I said. When Elias brought you home the first time, she said, you were quiet. Watchful. You didn't talk about yourself much. And I read it as not having much to say. As someone who was present without substance. Yes, I said. I was wrong, she said. About what quietness means. I thought about my grandmother. My grandmother had been quiet the same way, not from absence of substance, but from the specific reserve of a woman who has been taught that what you build speaks more accurately than what you say about yourself. My grandmother was quiet like that, I said. Tell me about her, she said. I told her. The property tax assessments at her kitchen table when I was 12. The way she had taught me to read financial documents not as a lesson, but as a sharing of the thing she loved. The way she had accumulated quietly and built quietly and owned quietly, and when she died had left 3 properties to her daughters, one of whom was my mother, who had taught me the same things. Marvella listened. She listened with the complete attention of a woman receiving information that is reorganizing her understanding of who she has been sitting across from. You come from women who built things, she said. Yes, I said. And you are one of those women, she said. I'm trying to be, I said. She was quiet for a moment. The house, she said, is yours. Yes, I said. I understand now why it is yours, she said. Not legally, why it is yours. Because you built toward it. Because building toward it is what your family does. She set down her tea. I should have asked, she said. Yes, I said. I should have asked a long time ago, she said. Elias and I had the honest conversation on a Sunday. Not the conversation about the house. We had had that conversation across the Thursday and Friday. The deeper conversation. The one about what the house being mine had produced in him, and what that production had required from him, and what the requiring had cost both of us. He was a project engineer. He had spent his professional life building things that other people designed, the particular valuable work of someone who takes a concept from plan to execution with the specific organized attention that execution requires. He was good at it. He was proud of it. He had also, across 3 years of marriage to a woman who owned the home they shared, been managing a feeling he had not named. "I feel like a tenant sometimes," he said. "In your own home," I said. "In the home I live in," he said. "Which is your home?" "I know it's our home in every practical sense. I know we share it and live in it and make decisions about it together. But the document says your name, and sometimes that document, not the paper version, the fact of it, sits between me and the feeling that the home is mine the way it is yours." I sat with this. "Why didn't you tell me?" I said. "Because it would have required me to ask something of you that I wasn't sure was fair to ask," he said. "What?" I said. "Whether you would ever consider adding my name," he said. I looked at my husband. "Elias," I said, "why didn't you ask me directly?" "Because I was afraid of what it meant that I needed to ask," he said. It felt like I was admitting that the home being yours instead of ours was bothering me, and that admitting that felt like I was measuring the marriage in property terms, and that felt wrong. "It's not wrong," I said. "It's honest. And honest is what we agreed to." He looked at me. "Would you?" he said. I thought about my grandmother. I thought about what she had built and why she had built it and who she had built it for. "Yes," I said. "I would. Not because you need it legally. Because you need it to feel what it is." He exhaled. "When you're ready," I said. "I'm ready," he said. I called my mother on a Monday. She was 62 years old and had the particular quality of a woman who had received everything my grandmother had taught and who had added to it the specific dimensions of her own 35 years of building and who had transmitted all of it to me across a childhood that I had not fully understood until I was an adult returning to it to understand what it had made me. She answered on the first ring. "Tell me," she said. I told her everything. Marvella's kitchen. The documents flat on the table. The Saturday meeting. Elias's honest conversation. What I had agreed to. She listened with the complete attention she always gave to things that mattered. When I finished, she said, "You're going to add his name." "Yes," I said. "Good," she said. "You think it's right?" I said. "I think," she said, "that your grandmother built things to give to family. That I continued what she built to give to you. That you continued what we built to purchase a home. And that you married a man and that man is your family now, and that giving your family access to what you have built is exactly what the building was for." I sat with this. "She taught me that property was self-determination," I said. "Not to share it. She taught you," my mother said, "that property was self-determination for women who had no other form of it. You have other forms. You have a career and an income and a professional reputation and a husband who told the truth about the home in a room where it was easier to let the lie stand." She paused. "Adding his name doesn't diminish what you built. It expands what you built into what it was always meant to become." I looked out my window. The home was outside it. The craftsman with the porch. The neighborhood my grandmother had known and my mother had known and that I had chosen, because choosing it was its own kind of continuity. "Mom," I said. "Yes," she said. "Thank you," I said. "That's what I'm here for," she said. Here is what I kept from a kitchen and a stove and a word that cost something to say and documents flat on a table and everything that followed. I kept my grandmother's silence. Not her literal silence, the specific quality of it. The reserve that comes not from absence of substance, but from the understanding that what you have built is more eloquent than what you say about it. Marvella had read my quietness as emptiness. My quietness was the particular quiet of someone who had been in rooms where her grandmother read property tax documents and who had absorbed that reading as the ordinary register of a serious mind. I am still quiet in rooms where my substance is not yet visible. I no longer worry about what that quietness communicates to people who have not yet earned the context for it. The documents on the table communicate everything that my presence in the room did not. I kept Elias's honest conversation. The specific, difficult honesty of a man who named a feeling he had been managing in silence, because naming it required him to make a request that felt vulnerable, and because vulnerability was something he had been taught to manage rather than express. He named it. He made the request. I added his name to the deed the following month with the particular warm intention of a woman who understood that building toward a life together means building the documentation to match. The deed has both names now. The home is ours in the form that it had always been, in fact. I kept Constance's coffee. She had called me on a Thursday and met me and said, "I'm sorry for the part my family played in this." 2 weeks later, she called again and said she was thinking of purchasing a property and asked if I would advise her. I said yes. We have been working together since. The best professional relationships sometimes begin in the strangest moments. I kept what Marvella said in the sitting room on the Saturday afternoon. I should have asked a long time ago. She visits the home now. She was there last Sunday for dinner. She sat at the table and she ate the meal Elias had cooked, and she looked at the room around her and she said, to no one specifically, "This is a good home." I heard it. I believe she meant it. I am 35 years old. My mother-in-law called me worthless at a stove. I reached into my bag. I laid the documents flat. Every page had my name on it. The house was mine. It always was. Now we share it. That was always the point. If this story reached something in you, if you have ever had to let the paper speak for you when the words were not enough, I want to hear about it in the comments. What document said the true thing when the room needed to hear it? Stories like this one stay alive because people carry them forward. Share this with someone who needs it today. And if you would like more stories told honestly, the way things worth keeping deserve to be told, subscribe. We will be here. The end.